She rides her bicycle across the bridge. Her father used to work at this refinery, and her best friend, Lala Liu, who's of Chinese Dominican heritage, is from Washington Heights. For me, it was important to create characters that are connected to a real place because it allows readers to see familiarity. I've normalized for these children seeing characters of color in a space which is dominated by white male narratives. Every superhero has an origin. Every superhero has a very colorful costume. Every superhero has incredible powers. But I spin it differently and create a recipe for the world to sit down and enjoy.
While roaming the streets of Brooklyn, New York, the pulse of Nuyorican culture is undeniable. Here in Williamsburg, Edgardo found inspiration when crafting Marisol's backstory, a superheroine born from the spirit of real people and their untold stories.
I've normalized for these children seeing characters of Puerto Rican heritage, of Latin heritage, characters of color in a space which is dominated by white male narratives. I'm offering a different take, but still kind of like tapping into the familiar tropes because every superhero has an origin. Every superhero has a very colorful costume. Every superhero has incredible powers. But I'd spin it differently and create a recipe that produces a sancocho for the world to sit down and enjoy.
Edgardo Miranda-Rodriguez is a graphic novelist and philanthropist, best known as the creator of La Borinqueña. This fictional tale follows Marisol Rios de la Luz, an environmental science student living in Brooklyn with her parents. During a semester abroad in Puerto Rico, her research leads her to a hidden cave where mystical crystals grant her superpowers, transforming her into La Borinqueña.
What I love about your work is it's not just these characters that you create, they're in real places. Like we're in Williamsburg, this is it.
Marisol is from Williamsburg, Brooklyn, a community that's been rich in Puerto Rican and Dominican culture for generations. She rides her bicycle across the bridge. Her father used to work at this refinery, and her best friend, Lala Liu, who's of Chinese Dominican heritage, is from Washington Heights, which is just north of us. So for me, it was important to create characters that are connected to a real place because it allows readers to see familiarity. They see themselves in these characters, whether you're from the Caribbean or the United States or anywhere else on the planet. And as Latin people, we're an ethnic group. We comprise and consist of all of these races. So you can be Asian or of African descent or indigenous or even European descent and still kind of claim this culture. And that's what I wanted to do for my character.
Tell me your childhood comic affection story.
Every week, I had a teacher who would put up 10 vocabulary words on the board that we had to learn. And her ask was, by the end of this week, submit 10 sentences showing me that you know what these words mean. Put them in context. I took those 10 words every week and wrote a story. And every week was a continuation of that story. I would illustrate a few images attached to that story. Eventually, during my primary school years, I started writing and illustrating comic books for my friends and would sell them for 25 cents, 50 cents. And these commissions allowed me the revenue to buy my own comic books. And I grew up in abject poverty. By the time I was 18, I lived in 22 different places throughout New York City, Pennsylvania, Puerto Rico, Central New York. And when I did live in New York City, I have vivid memories of walking my dog and collecting bottles and cans so I could collect a nickel for every bottle or can and exchange that to have the money to buy more comics. So comic book storytelling has always been a part of my life, my childhood. It served as a vehicle for escaping the harsh realities of poverty, of domestic violence that I witnessed, mental health issues that were part of my family growing up. And it allowed me an opportunity to create a community with these characters because of the episodic storytelling that existed. What's the time when you watch a film or even read a novel, you're done with that character. But in comic books, you can literally have a relationship with these characters for decades because the canon, the storytelling has been consistent.
Your superhero is right behind you. It's a female. That's got to be tough to try and come up with a narrative, to try and think differently. Was it tough or no?
You would think, but not for me. I was raised by a single mother. All of my mentors have been women who are lawyers, institution builders, educators. I have been very fortunate to see the power of feminism. I come from a background of activism, of service, working in nonprofit organizations that have always been led by women. And is it a test to their ability to be nurturers? I don't know. But I know that my witnessing this definitely inspired and shaped my storytelling abilities. So in creating this character, organically, the character was always a woman. There was never this internal debate. It was always a woman because women were always the heroes in my life. Women were the ones that saved me. My wife saved me. My aunt has saved me. All of these women who have been very important in my life are seeing themselves manifested in this character.
They saved you. In what respect?
They gave me purpose. They gave me hope. They invested in my passion and my creativity. They fed me. They listened to me, gave me audience, and made me see myself as an artist. When I met my wife, Kyung, a fine artist, she introduced me to this fantastical world of creativity that I was never exposed to, the gallery world. And in that space, I started seeing myself as an artist, as a storyteller. It was these women who gave me the opportunity to see a part of myself that I didn't see within myself. So I believe that the work that I do with La Borinqueña is a reflection of that love that has been poured into me so that I can kind of like reflect that back to the world. Comic books, the superhero genre, are centered around fighting for social justice, narratives that fight for social justice. I am a social justice warrior. This project was always a love letter to Puerto Rico.
Edgardo's creation debuted in 2016 with a name that honors Borinqueña, the island's indigenous legacy, while emerging as a symbol of justice for Puerto Rico.
If a superhero can come from a fictional country wedged in between other real countries in the continent of Africa, then a superhero should be able to come from the archipelago of Puerto Rico and the Caribbean islands.
After Hurricane Maria's devastation in 2017, Edgardo launched Reconstruction, a graphic novel where La Borinqueña joins DC superheroes to help rebuild the island. The anthology raised over $200,000, fueling grassroots recovery efforts through La Borinqueña grants programs, thus earning humanitarian recognition.
We are very grateful you accepted some more on behalf of Puerto Rico. Y que viva Puerto Rico. Gracias. I think one of the things that makes the project of La Borinqueña very unique is its approach to patriotism, nationalism, and activism. I was in San Diego receiving one of the most prestigious awards in the comic book industry, the Eisner, for my humanitarian work. At the exact same time, close to 200,000 Puerto Ricans on the archipelago in the Caribbean were marching the streets of San Juan, demanding that the exposed, corrupt governor resign. When I took to the stage at this event, I denounced the governor. And I also denounced the government of the United States for its lack of support in what led to the loss of 4,645 lives as a result of Hurricane Maria and the negligence. As I was receiving that award and giving my speech, there was a young woman dressed as La Borinqueña marching through the streets of San Juan, participating in this demonstration, in this protest. And the images were showing up in social media in chronological order. And it was this blue cape blowing in the background. And the images brought her closer and closer and closer to the frame until we finally saw her holding a banner that we demand the reconstruction of Puerto Rico, which is a call to the title of my #1 best-selling book, Reconstruction, which was a team up between my character and the entire DC comic book universe. And Wonder Woman's on the cover, Superman's on the back cover. Inside you have Batman, The Flash, Green Lantern, all these characters that have been around collectively for close to 80 years came to Puerto Rico for the first time because of this book, because of this charity work. And that is why the character, I believe, resonates so well with Puerto Ricans, with Latinos, with people of color, because it connects to the narrative of social justice that's inherently in superhero storytelling, but it takes it out of the pages and panels and makes it active in real life, making us the only comic book series in existence that is actually associated with a foundation that we run that awards grants to nonprofits who we feel are the real superheroes on the ground doing work. And when I do events in Puerto Rico or across the United States and I have the opportunity to engage with many of our supporters, I frequently hear this phrase in Spanish, and I'll say it in Spanish and translate it. Gracias por poner a nuestra bandera en alta, a nuestra isla en alta. Thank you for elevating our flag, for elevating our culture. Because I see myself in many ways as a voice for my people, for my culture, internationally, particularly in this space of superhero storytelling, which we are completely invisible in. An industry, ironically enough, that was founded by Jewish Americans at the height of anti-Semitism, at the height of the threat of fascism in the 1930s and 40s, but over decades has kind of like detached itself from its origins, which were connected to social justice. And the first issue of Captain America is him knocking out Adolf Hitler, you know, and Superman and Batman comic books were raising to buy U.S. bonds to invest in our country, or fighting domestic violence in the first appearance of a Superman story. I tether myself to that legacy. So although I make comic books and I have a background as an activist, I'm a comic book nerd. I know my comics. I know my history. I have what we call our long boxes, which are filled with hundreds of comics of these stories that I've been collecting since I was a child, and I still have the original comic books. And because I'm a lover and a purveyor of this genre, I bring that love into my storytelling. So I see my storytelling as an evolution of what made me the young man that loved these stories. So the women shaped me, these superheroes shaped me, and now I'm able to kind of like do my part by bringing these characters into reality.
As La Borinqueña's legend grew, so did her world, introducing a powerful, diverse league of heroes, including one of Chinese descent, expanding the legacy of justice and representation.
We had a chance to talk about diversity, and it seems like you're always pushing the envelope. And I want to talk to you about this character of Chinese descent.
Yeah.
That's kind of a whole new avenue for you. Talk to me about the genesis of this, the idea, and what's behind it all.
It actually comes as a reflection of our family. We're an Asian Latino family. My wife's of Korean heritage. But in looking at my history as a Latino, is very connected to U.S. history. In 1882, the United States introduced the Chinese Exclusionary Act, a very xenophobic law that was instituted to stop the migration of Chinese into the United States, but more specifically, just all Asians. But this didn't stop the migration, because Chinese and other Asians started migrating to Latin America. And one of the strongest populations in Latin America of people of Chinese descent is in the Caribbean, on the island of the Dominican Republic. The first issue of La Borinqueña, her best friend is Chinese Dominican. And one of the reasons why I wanted to introduce a character of Asian descent was to show how diverse people of Latin American heritage are, because we're not a racial group, we're an ethnic group that consists of multiple races, of African, Asian, indigenous, European. All of these mixtures make us such an incredibly diverse looking group. So Luz, La Luminosa, grew out of a character that was introduced in the first book called Lala Liu. That's Lala right there. That was actually created for an exhibition that I produced for the Smithsonian's Asian Pacific American Center. And she debuted in that art show in 2016. What makes this book incredibly special is not only the fact that she is an Asian Latina superhero of Chinese and Dominican descent, but it's the first book to address endometriosis in the superhero storytelling space, a disease that there unfortunately is no cure for, a disease that causes excruciating pain, and a disease that's also connected to a woman's health and reproductive issues, because it's connected to a woman's menstrual cycle. In this story, we actually learn about what this disease is, but I balance it with superhero storytelling because I don't want to produce a public service announcement or a pamphlet. If anything, it's a metaphor for what women deal with regularly. Women constantly have some sort of pain or some sort of burden and are still expected to persist and to be active members of society.
We started by talking about you as a little boy, your son.
Right.
He came up with an idea.
So I was working on the third book, and this hardcover actually collects our first 4 graphic novels. And I put the script on pause, and then the pandemic hit. We just have a lot of downtime, so I think, let me revisit the script. I read it, the ending was just too dark. I said, we're living in incredibly dark times already. I asked my sons, both of them, can you guys help me? I want to create a new superhero team. I want La Borinqueña to lead her own team of superheroes. And I want to create some new characters. Help me create some new characters. My older son gave me an idea because he loves birds and he loves superheroes that fly. So I took that and I developed an original character based on that. My youngest son went to the side, started drawing. I got an idea, Dada. He was only 5 at the time. He starts drawing and he's staring at this folkloric mask that we have in our home. That was actually a gift from one of our grantees. And he continues to draw and he passes me the drawing of this golden superhero that he created. And I looked at it and I said, we'll call him Oro, el coquito dorado, gold, the golden tree frog. And that manifested into the ending of this book and the superhero's debut at the ending of that story. And that would grow into a character that would have his own book, Oro el Coquito Dorado. And that for me was a reflection of what makes our model so unique, because it's about family, it's about charity, it's about change, but it's also about the future. And having my youngest son be a part of this, and now he actually creates his own comic books. He made his debut at New York Comic Con in 2024, and we had him there at our booth. It's magical. And it still ties into this idea that we have to be the creators of characters that connect us to our humanity and that connect us to our culture so that the world can learn from us and celebrate along with us.
Magical is a great way to describe this conversation. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much.